Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
I never believed in the supernatural. Joey Bologna Baldwin, yeah, they called him Bologna, was the captain of the football team at my new school, Polka High. He was also in charge of harassing the new students upon arrival as well. He stood tall and slim, with the redneck equivalent of the California surfer look. His wife-beater lay tucked under his favorite camo jacket, and his tight blue jeans completed the package. I hated him before he even spoke. "Hey, new kid!" I kept my face down and my books clutched to my chest. There was nothing I wanted less than a conversation with that meathead. "You deaf, kid?" He reached out and grabbed my shoulder. "What's your name?" "Brian." I mumbled, looking at him. "Now leave me alone." "Hey, I'm just trying to invite you to a little get-together at my place this weekend." I stared at him and his group of hype men and wondered what kind of joke that they were trying to play on me. "You what?" I asked. "It's an initiation type thing, you know?" Joey smiled. "After that, we leave you alone." I had no desire to be intimidated, but I also had no desire to be harassed every day for the remainder of my stay at that god-forsaken school. I considered my options, and with a defeated sigh, I replied, "What time?" His friends erupted into barbaric cheers, fist-bumping and high-fiving each other. I felt like I was a cast member on some shitty MTV reality show. "Friday night, my place. My parents are out of town for the weekend." He grinned. "What is this initiation?" "Oh, you'll see." He looked over his shoulder to his friends, who were all laughing. "I hope you don't scare easy." I don't scare easy, but the way he and his friends were acting made me doubt my own fear tolerance. Over the next few days, I asked a few kids if they knew what the initiation was all about, but no one would say a word. It was apparently something that everyone knew about, though, because on Friday people started wishing me luck. My mind started telling me this was a bad idea, and my heart was trying to leave my chest and flee the scene. I sat on the school bus on my way home, thinking of all the things it could be. Nothing had prepared me for that night. Nothing could have. I arrived at Joey's house around 9 p.m. and knocked on the door. His home was tucked away in a wooded area, much like every other house in town, beneath a canopy of hanging trees. I must admit it was a nice house. The door opened and there stood Mr. Joey Bologna, wearing his school-issued polka dot sweatpants. Yeah, the high school mascot is the Dots. How stupid. And a white plain t-shirt. He placed his hand on my shoulder and gripped it tight. "I didn't think you'd show." "Well, I did." "Hey, the new kid showed up," he screamed into the house. I heard a few hoots and hollers over the country music that was blaring from the kitchen. I felt like I was in a B-rate horror movie mashup, like Deliverance meets Scream or something. "Want a beer?" Joey asked me. "Sure," I said. I figured I may as well get drunk if I was going to have to deal with these assholes for the night. "Hey, Danny, throw me a natty, bro." Danny was one of the offensive linemen on the football team. He weighed about 340 pounds and was wearing his football jersey with the same polka dot sweatpants. Joey caught the beer and tossed it to me. I pulled the tab and had to immediately drink the beer that started spewing from the top. "Chug, chug, chug," the mob chanted. An hour passed, and I felt the mood shifting. Everyone started whispering to themselves and looking at me, which made me uncomfortable. I started to become intoxicated. Why was everyone staring at me? "It's time for initiation, people." Joey entered the room with an empty black sack. My heart started pounding against my chest, and I felt my forehead getting moist. I wiped my hands on my jeans and tried to calm myself. "You ready?" Joey looked at me. Yeah. "Come with me." The party went into a riot as they chanted, "Go, go, go." It wasn't nearly as inviting as the chug chant from earlier. "I need to go to the bathroom," I said before we reached the back door. "Number 1 or number 2? Joey asked. Not the question I had expected, but I didn't hesitate. "I think I'm going to throw up." "All right, initiation will have to wait," Joey said. The mob booed and started chanting, "Pussy, pussy." Once again, I liked the chug chant better. "Don't do that shit down here, bro. Bathroom's upstairs on the right." I worked my way through the angry mob and jogged up the stairs in search of the bathroom. After a few seconds, I located the door and made my way across the hall. I stopped at the entrance and listened for a moment. I stood completely still and could hear the sound of crying coming from the room next to me. Noticing the door was half open, I glanced into the room. On the bed, crying, sat a beautiful girl wearing a blue nightgown with white lacing. Her curly brown hair fell to her shoulders, and I could see her tears from the hallway. She looked up at me. "Who are you? Go away." So sorry," I stammered and turned to the bathroom. "No, wait, don't go," she said, sniffling. "Sorry, it's been a shitty night." I saw a picture hanging on the wall next to me. The picture was of Joey, his parents, his older brother, and his sister, whom I now realized was seated before me. "Come on in," she said, beckoning me. "I'm Vanessa." "I can't," I said, trying to get the words out of my mouth. I've never been good to talking with girls, especially pretty ones. "They're waiting." She laughed. "Are you being initiated?" She created quotation marks in the air with her fingers. I stepped into her room. "Yeah, what's funny?" She motioned to the edge of her bed. "Sit down." I wiped my palms on my jeans and inched closer to her bed. I sat down, taking up the least amount of space as physically possible. A cool coconut-scented breeze swept through the room, causing the hair on my arms to stand up like soldiers, in formation. "Don't be nervous," she laughed. "It's cute, though. I like it." Her olive skin was blemish-free. Her stare was inviting. Those words were all my heart needed to explode in my chest. Blood rushed to my groin as I struggled to speak. "What's initiation?" "Something stupid Joey and his idiot friends do to the new kids. They take you to the creek out back and make you sit under the stone bridge with that stupid black sack on your head. Then they all tell you a dumb story about a girl that drowned behind our house. They leave you there for 30 minutes while they try to scare you by making noises." She rolled her eyes. "They're so fucking stupid." I laughed. "That's initiation?" "Yep, that's it." She smiled. Her teeth were that of a Colgate model. What I had been so afraid of, anyway. I didn't even believe in ghosts. I was more afraid of them just kicking my ass. That was much scarier than sitting under a stone bridge. Vanessa scooted toward me until our arms were touching. Goosebumps appeared in my arms like bubbles of boiling water. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ryan," I replied. "Nice to meet you," she said with a smile. "If you don't mind me asking, why were you crying?" She took a deep breath and wiped the last of her tears from her drying eyes. "My boyfriend broke up with me tonight," Oh, I'm sorry. Fuck him, right? Pretty much. You, have a girlfriend, Ryan? She placed her hand on my thigh and I nearly melted. Her emerald eyes burned a hole into my soul. No, I said. I never have. Never? She bounced in the bed and grabbed my shoulder, pushing me in a playful manner. Lies. No, really, I've never had a girlfriend. I could feel the heat in my cheeks. Why was I telling her that? I should have just lied. You're adorable, she said. She leaned over, putting her face in front of mine, her eyes radiating pure happiness, and kissed me. She kissed me. It was my first kiss, but it was worth the wait. My body tingled and my heart struggled to decide on a rhythm. I placed my hand behind her head like they do in the movies and slipped her tongue into my mouth. And it was over. She pulled away and smiled. Better get going before they see you up here. I nodded and stood up. I turned from the door and waved goodbye. She smiled and blew me a kiss as my insides tumbled around like gymnasts. When I made it back downstairs, everyone cheered. About time, bro, Joey said. We're starting to think you died up there. I laughed. I'm okay, let's go. The mob escorted me outside, just like Vanessa had told me. I was instructed to sit under the stone bridge. Joey placed a sack over my head, and the sound of the creek filled my ears. They're going to try to scare you. A girl died in this creek 20 years ago, Joey said in his best scary voice. Her father was an alcoholic and used to use this bridge for punishment. He would put a sack over her head, like the one you're wearing now, and tie her to the metal latch at your feet. I moved my feet out of curiosity and felt a hard object. I bent over and grabbed the object with my hands. It was sturdy and had an opening large enough for a rope. At least they were trying. One night, as she sat tied up and hooded, it began to rain. It rained hard. Her drunk-ass father passed out in the house and left her there. The rain that night was record-breaking. The creek rose and flooded into the yard. The water wasn't even up to my feet at the moment. I had to move down to the water on purpose to get wet, but I could imagine how easily it would flood. If I were tied to the latch, my head would be below ground level. The girl fought with the creek, struggling to keep her head above water. She failed. Her father found her dead the next morning, and then hung himself by the tree to your right. I could feel a cool breeze blowing over my neck as I sat in the darkness. A tingling sensation crept down my arms. With the sack over my head, my imagination ran wild. They say sensory deprivation can cause hallucinations, and I believe them. I heard laughter that didn't sound human. The voices reverberated, making my place under the bridge sound like an empty cathedral hall. Two images appeared in the darkness in front of me. They glided closer and closer until they were identifiable. One of the figures was that of a young girl. Her hair was long and blonde, had clothing ragged and torn. The other was of a man. His face was unkempt, his hair long and greasy, his clothes dirty. He pulled the sack down over her head as she cried hysterically, struggling to get free. The man tossed an empty bottle of Jack Daniels to the ground and spit into the water. I could smell the alcohol in his breath when he spoke to her. Vanessa's warnings weren't enough to stop the fear from entering my mind. The images faded and I could hear the mob whispering, but their voices seemed distant. The sounds of thunder crashed around me like an angry orchestra. I felt drops of water splash against my skin, sending chills down my spine. The sound of rain pounded off the stone bridge above as I felt the water rising. Scared, I tried to stand, only to realize there was now rope binding my wrists. I jerked with all my strength, but to no avail. I followed the rope to the creek floor and grabbed the latch. I thrashed in the water, trying to free myself from its clutches as the water rose to waist level. Faster and faster, The water rose. The whispers from the mob faded, and I could tell I was all alone. I was left to die in the creek, like the girl from the story. As the water rose past my neck, I did my best to angle my head toward the bridge. If I was lucky, it would stop rising just short of my nose. I strained with every ounce of strength I could muster as the water rose over my mouth, sloshing back and forth near the bottom of my nostrils. I tried everything to stay calm, and took one last breath before the water rushed over my nose. I could see the image of the girl struggling once more, and for a moment it felt like we were the same person. I could feel my lungs giving up as they burned inside my chest. I accepted defeat and cursed Joey and his friends for leaving me outside to die. I closed my eyes and gasped for air. I heard the sounds of the mob approaching again. Their voices became clearer as I struggled to open my eyes. "You all right, bro?" A voice I recognized as Joey's said. "You were screaming and shit, man. Fucking hilarious." Yeah, riot," I said as I removed the sack from my head. I trembled as I tried to regain my sanity. Joey gripped my shoulders with a fatherly squeeze. "It's over, man. Welcome to Polka." I walked upstairs to the bedroom and saw that Vanessa's light was still on. I decided to pop in and let her know how wrong she had been about the initiation, but when I pushed the door open, she wasn't there. I heard the fan in the bathroom running and decided to wait for her to get out. The sound of footsteps came stomping up the stairs. Danny appeared soon after, doubled over, attempting to catch his breath. "Don't run much, I take it?" I said. "Funny," he said. "What were you doing in there? Joey will kill you for going in that room." I laughed. I'm sure he would. My memory of the kiss rushed back to me. "No, really, man." His tone seemed serious. Okay. I'll leave his sister alone." I turned back to her room and noticed the lights were off. The room was lit only by the moonlight, which left a dark blue tint on everything. "Not funny, dude." I looked with wide eyes to the window. Hanging from the ceiling, garbed in a blue nightgown, with white lace trim, was Vanessa. Her wiry hair fell over her face, her skin decomposed and pale. She hung from a rope, and I could see the bruises on her neck from the break. Her left hand gripped a piece of paper. I turned to Danny, my heart pounding in my chest. I must still be under the bridge. "Vanessa died 5 years ago, man," Danny said with a whisper. Her boyfriend broke up with her and she ran to her room and hung herself. Joey found her the next morning with a suicide note in her hand. I stared at him. My knees trembled from the fear of not knowing whether or not I was still under the sack. What did the note say? Danny looked at me and lowered his gaze to the ground. It said, "All I ever wanted was to be kissed."
Chilling tales for dark nights.